Hello, my name is Jennifer Jordan. I'm an enrolled member of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. We're also known as the people of the Standing Stone. Let's just talk a little bit about me for a minute. I don't like talking about me a lot, but we're going to talk about me for a little bit. So just a little bit of background about me. My background is in public health. I have worked in healthcare in the past, and in 2016, I got my PhD in public health. I'm currently employed with the Oneida Nation as an internal auditor, and I'm a single mom to a beautiful daughter. She's right here. And my hobbies include reading, creating, dancing at powwows, helping others learn to bead, which I love to do. And I especially love teaching young people how to bead. And I'm also a Green Bay Packer fan for life. I salute to the Packers, who have a bye week, unfortunately, today. So, how many of you have heard of Haudenosaunee people, or what Europeans named as Iroquois people? How many of you have heard of us before? Okay. So, of you who raised your hands, what do you know about us? I know you raised your hand. An Eastern tribe? Yep, that's correct. Anyone else? Lacrosse. Yes, the Crooners game. Sure enough, we played a lot of lacrosse. We still do. We are Eastern Woodlands. Yep, and we'll go a little bit more about that. I got maps and all kinds of good stuff. So, Haudenosaunee people, Iroquois. That's what most people know us as, but Iroquois is a French word that was given to us many, many years ago. Haudenosaunee is what we call ourselves, and we are known as the people of the Longhouse. There are 6 tribal nations that belong to the Haudenosaunee people. That would be the Cayuga, the Mohawk, the Oneida, which I am a member of, Onondaga, Seneca, and then the Tuscarora joined us in 1722, and they're originally from North Carolina. So here's an ancestral map from where we used to live. It's in the Finger Lakes area of northern New York. So you can see the different areas where the Haudenosaunee people have lived. So when we say Oneida Nation, and I did get this quite a bit today, a lot of people ask me if I was from New York, because a lot of people know or are familiar with the Oneida Nation in New York. That is our original homeland. Back in, I believe it was 1822, some of us were removed from New York. So there are 3 Oneida Nations. There's the Oneida Nation in New York, those who stayed. And then 2 other groups of folks moved. You have the Oneida Nation of the Thames, and they're in between Toronto and Windsor, Canada. And then you have the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin, of which I belong, and we're outside of Green Bay, Wisconsin. So this map here shows you of the migration, and that it took place in 1822 when we moved to Wisconsin, and then in the 1830s when the Oneidas moved to the Thames in Canada. This is a map of the state of Wisconsin, and right now there are 11 federally recognized tribes that live in Wisconsin, of which the majority of the ones that have originated in Wisconsin, their ancestral homes would be like the Ho-Chunk, the Menominee, the Potawatomi, and a lot of the Ojibwe tribes. Historically, we purchased our land where our reservation is today, where the Green Bay area is, from the Menominee, and it's the ancestral land of the Ho-Chunk and the Menominee Nation. Before contact with Europeans, our beadwork was mostly utilizing organic materials such as bones, clay beads, shells, wood, fur, and feathers. So one thing I'm going to show you today is I have a couple of examples of the organic types of materials that we used to use. Now, these are some antlers of white-tailed deer. We have lots of them in Wisconsin. Fortunately, they end up on the side of the road this time of the year, but I'm just going to pass these around for you guys to look at. This is just one of the tips, the horn tips. You know, you can drill holes in those. And here's another of the tips. I drilled holes in these. We use those a lot for buttons, for attachments, for like bags and clothing. And then this is just a side cut of one of the antlers in which I drilled 2 buttons. And I use those for pieces of my beadwork on the bottoms of them so they don't touch the table. So they're like little feet for the table. this lady asked if I had to wear a mask when I did the drilling, and I don't. And just because I do it very infrequently, and the drill bit I use is really teeny tiny. Another item we have here is I have some cowrie shells. Those, again, would have been used for adornment, and I can pass those around. You might have seen a couple of the gentlemen out there, and maybe some ladies, too, who had purple wampum. These are examples of wampum shells right here. And I have some around my neck and in my ears, too. Now, these would have been used a lot for adorning jewelry, necklaces, etc. It's also used in some of our tree belts, too. And then I have a finished piece here that has been sanded and sanded down very nicely. So once Europeans came here, they introduced trade goods to us. So the adornment for our garments has changed from the organic materials you have in your hands to glass beads and metal beads, which are inorganic materials. Now, a lot of those beads came from places like France, Italy, back in the day. But now, modern day, with technology and all that good stuff, has switched, and those manufacturers don't manufacture those beads anymore, and the manufacturing has changed to reflect the beads from the Czech Republic and Japan. Now, let me show you the difference. You can tell in some of the older beads that they're not as uniform as beads you would buy today. So you might have some, like I have some older Japanese beads here, okay? And as you look at them in the tubes, you can tell that they're not as uniform. The color is nice, but again, you want uniformity when you're doing your work. So in the tubes, these are two examples of older Japanese style beads. Now, my favorite type of bead to utilize would be the Czech beads. And the reason being, they've always been consistent with their sizes. The hole sizes have always been bigger, and consistency matters. So in this little jar here, I've been working with these all afternoon, is a jar of Czech style beads. So you can check those out. Yeah. Check those out for their uniformity. Those are a size 11, and I believe those ones are too. So beads come in a whole range of sizes too. You can get them as big as the old pony beads, which are, I think, huge. I think they're a size E bead. And you can get them, like these are 11s. You can go down as small as to a 15. I guess there's some even smaller. I have a size 17 I found once. I only have one hank of them. And they are so tiny, I don't think I have a needle small enough for them. So it's the bigger the number, the bigger the size number of the bead, the smaller the bead's going to be. Let's talk a little bit about Haudenosaunee beadwork and why it's so different. How many of you have stopped by my booth today? Well, I'm in booth number 157, and I have examples of Haudenosaunee raised beadwork there. So how our beadwork is different than the beadwork of plains or other areas is that our beadwork is like three-dimensional. So it's raised so that you get that style of beadwork. And it's like a building of the beads upon the beads, all right? In the picture here, it's not a very clear picture, and I apologize, but if you come to my booth, you can see the vessel that it's beaded on. This is an example. So you can see the beads do come up in a three-dimensional style. What about Haudenosaunee beadwork? Well, historically, our beadwork was sold to tourists visiting the Niagara Falls area and other points of interest in upstate New York. Pieces that were sold to tourists were known as whimsy. And they could consist of, picture frames, ornaments, beaded birds, beaded ladies' shoes of the day, not tennis shoes, but the heeled shoes, and pin cushions. Now, The beadwork back then was pretty much monochrome because they didn't have a lot of different colors and shapes and sizes and all the good stuff that we have today. And a lot of white beads were used. So on this next slide, you can see a couple of examples I peeled off the internet of our old style beadwork. And as you can see up here, you can see that the lady's older style shoe. That one up next to the shoe looks like a scissors holder. The one that says 1911 looks like it's an ornament, like a fancy ornament. Again, the one over on your right with the birds and the leaves, that appears to be like a pincushion or maybe a pillow. Same with the horse here. And an example of the picture frame there from 1908. Again, you can see a lot of the white beads and very little color work. And then in the same with the pillow there. I also have a really cool picture frame that my friend and mentor loaned out to me just for this presentation today. Now, this picture frame's over 100 years old. And as you can see, that's her niece in there. As you can see within this picture frame, and I'll walk it around, you can see how the use of monochrome beads and how the beads are built upon each other to create that raised effect. Now, these beads on here are bigger. It looks like the artist used size 8 beads and size 11 beads within the structure. Get close here, you can take a peek at this one. These would be like the size 11 beads, and these would be the bigger size 8 beads. So in comparison to this one, I just wanted to show you a piece that I made. This is more of a modern style, and I did pink because I like it. So as you can see here, and I'll come around again with this one, we do these on a velvet background. And then I used a cut bead for the effect, but you can see the raised beadwork there too. Go ahead. Yeah, sometimes you have to build the beads underneath, so it's like kind of like playing with Legos. When you put a base in there and then you go over the top of it. Yep, at times. Otherwise, there's different stitches you can do to get that raised effect, as if you move like, let's say this is a U that you're going to bead down. You can bead them closer like this so that your beginning stitch and your ending stitch are closer so that the beads raise up. All right, so now that we've talked a little bit about Haudenosaunee beadwork, I want to ask you guys some questions too. So, in your opinion, not mine, your opinion, why do you think people create art? Sometimes they have to, for utility. It gives you peace. And the challenge, yes, sir, how about you? To tell a story. You got a storyteller back there. Those of you who created art, what inspires you? Or why do you create art? Why? To share ideas and to teach. Exactly. Yeah, artwork it does feel very personal because you put a lot of time and effort and blood and sweat and sometimes a lot of tears into that work too, just to get the piece the way you want it. Okay, we're going to talk about me again. So why does Jennifer Jordan create art? Why do I create art? Well, for a couple of reasons. I really enjoy the creative outlet, okay? I work 40 hours a week as an internal auditor. How many of you guys know what that job is? Okay, I love the job. So sometimes you just need that little creative outlet because of the stress of the day at work or whatever you have happened to have gone on in your workday. Another reason is I want to carry on this traditional style of Haudenosaunee beadwork. I don't want to be the last person to have it end with me. I feel that need is, it's very personal for me to carry that on and to teach my daughter. I've taught my niece, and now I can teach my daughter how to do this too. And we have a philosophy of we need to do things now in order to take care of the next 7 generations. And I'm hoping that when my daughter has children and grandchildren, she's able to teach them about the raised beadwork process too, and just to keep that process going. Okay, so for me, why do I beadwork? Why do I do beadwork? Well, passion that developed way back in 1995. And why did it happen? Well, I created my first regalia for the Miss Oneida pageant when I was 18 years old. The only reason I went for the pageant, I wanted the scholarship money because I was going to college that fall. But you know what? I learned a lot from the beadwork too. I learned from my great aunt who is no longer with us. She showed me how to do start off doing the raised beadwork. And then I also learned from my dad too. Now, my passion for beads and beadwork, it really expanded when I went to college in Moorhead, Minnesota. How many of you guys know where that place is? It's on the western end of Minnesota between Fargo, North Dakota and Moorhead, Minnesota. I loved it out there. So I met two bead stand owners, and they were husband and wife, Lucy and Mick. Lucy, she's a Ho-Chunk native, and Mick, he was actually the local weatherman. And they were the neatest couple ever. And I got the opportunity to work for them while I was in college, okay? What I did for them was a lot of stuff. I tied hanks, okay? You know, beads sometimes come in the strings. Well, they don't come automatically like that. They come in this big, huge mess where you have to clip a certain string so that they don't all fall apart and run away on you. So I learned how to tie those hanks up so they would not run away. I worked at their bead stand all summer long, even during the winter months too. Whenever I had a free minute and they were going somewhere, I worked that bead stand with them. I got to travel all the way to Canada. Now, if you know where Fargo Moorhead is, we are probably about 3 to 4 hours south of Winnipeg, Manitoba. They had a supplier in that area. So we were able to go all the way up to Canada, pick up the beads, stay overnight, and come back home. Now, when you're in your late teens, early 20s, that's a fun trip. I got to attend powwows all over the country and meet people from other tribes. So I got to see beadwork from other tribes, and I got to know their beadwork styles and what size beads they wanted, what colors were traditional to them. That made a huge impact on me. And I also learned a lot from Ojibwe friends who are now family. So when I worked at that bead stand, I didn't only learn about beadwork, okay? I learned some really great business skills, such as sales and how to make a sale, purchasing, how to buy those beads, when to buy those beads, what quantities, what colors. You got to know what's in stock, how to actually run that business. I learned how to talk to people. I was so shy growing up. Working for this bead stand made me come out of my shell to be able to talk to people. I also learned how to conduct an inventory on my beads, again, so I knew what to purchase. I learned how to pack and unpack supplies, unpack and unpack a whole bead stand. And I got that opportunity to travel. That was cool. So let's ask you, on my audience, what or who inspires you to be creative? You like to see what other people are doing? All right. I inspire you. Oh, thank you, babe. We all have our superstars that we admire and look up to in the art world. That's exactly right. So these people are my inspiration for beading. The black and white picture are my great-grandparents. Okay, they're Amelia Wheelock Jordan and Benjamin Jordan. My great-grandmother used to bead a long time ago. Unfortunately, she passed away 10 years before I was born. But I do have several pieces of her beadwork that have been entrusted to me, and they are fantastic. Another picture up on top is my grandma. She will be 98 in February, and she always loves to look at my beadwork. She didn't get past the 6th grade, and she keeps telling me that I need to keep going and keep going and keep going. I lost my grandpa a couple of years ago when he was 95. You know, the two of them together were just my biggest supports. Down here in the limo, this is the rest of my family, my parents, my sister, my nieces, and my nephew. Again, they support my beadwork. Not financially, but they are the ones that give me that, that boost when you need it once in a while. And then lastly, you see this lady here? That's my friend Betty. I consider her my friend and my mentor. She has really taken me under her wing and showed me a lot of the ropes about the beadwork, how to price my beadwork, and different techniques, and then checking out color schemes, and you name it. We usually do it over coffee and laughs and eating. Always got to have good eats. Here's some other pictures of my inspiration. Now, I took all of these pictures all in Wisconsin, okay? I like to look at nature for inspiration for a couple of reasons. Not only because it's nice to get out in nature and smell that fresh air and check out everything, but look at the color schemes in there. Nature has done all of the color work for you. You don't have to sit and mess with a lot of different color schemes. Get your inspiration from nature. For instance, look at the picture of the sunflower. I took that in my garden, all right? You can get the best detail by looking at that photo. You can see the little tendrils that are coming up so that you can add texture to your work. You can also see within the petals that it's not just yellow. You also have browns in there and whites and maybe a little bit of black in the shading so that you can use those components for your artwork also. Again, the flowers on the right-hand side, that's called Monarda. And you can see how those are not just pink, but once you get up closer to them, there's so many different shades of pink in there that you want to utilize. And even with the shading and the greenness of the plant fibers around it, I mean, you can really do so much with that. And with it being now in the fall season, I incorporated a picture of a river that's on our reservation, and the trees are just starting to turn color. And now you can see how not all of them are monochromatic, but that there's just so much color in there with the reds and the greens and the maroons. And you can just develop that and incorporating how it looks within the water too. Any questions about what we've learned today, or that you're just burning and dying to ask me? I'm an open book. Come on. Well, you can look online. There are some YouTube videos to show how to do the raised beadwork. No, I'm not that techie yet. You can also look at different art shows too. Are you from down here in this area? You probably won't find a lot of this style of beadwork until you go up north. Or even if you went to the Carolinas and went to where the Tuscaroras live in North Carolina, then you would see a lot more of this style of beadwork. How long did it take to do that picture frame? Like I said, I work 40 hours too, and if I would have sat to do that, probably would have taken me at least maybe 3 days to get all the beadwork and all that done. But like I said, I pretty much do a majority of my beadwork at nights or on weekends or when I have spare minute. Well, I would like to thank the Cherokee Art Board for inviting me to speak today. And then I'd also like to say Yonko, thank you in the Oneida language. Saweni Slioha. It means you have a good day.